For more than the last decade of my life, I have bought the new Call of Duty every single year. And while I certainly had plenty of great times, there were also many years defined by disappointment, frustration, and perhaps worst of all, apathy. Despite this, I would somehow inevitably get roped back in each time that next title came around. Call it tradition, fear of missing out, or whatever else, they always found a way to get me. But this year was the year I have finally broken free. I will not be buying or playing Black Ops 7, and I've never felt better. Any COD player watching this will be familiar with the Call of Duty cycle, but for those who aren't suffering from undiagnosed mental illness, allow me to explain. For as long as I can remember, the COD community seems to go through the same exact motions every year. The new game comes out in October or November, and everyone talks about how great it is. By February, the conversation starts to turn more negative, either because of bad updates or general boredom. By April, the consensus becomes that this is the worst Call of Duty ever, and last year was actually way better. And then right around that same time is when the next game gets announced, and the hype cycle builds back up. We all gaslight ourselves into thinking this year will be different. This will be the year COD is back. And then the cycle repeats again. I've fallen into this trap more times than I can count, trying to relive the glory days of this franchise. And oh man, they almost got me again. For a while, I thought I was in a good spot. I had stopped playing Black Ops 6 before the calendar year even reached 2025 and never looked back. When Black Ops 7 first started being marketed, I wholeheartedly did not care. I didn't think it looked bad, I didn't think it looked good, I just didn't think about it at all. And it was here I had my first glimmer of hope that I may have broken the cycle. But Activision did that thing they always do when it's time to sell this year's game and started saying all the right things. First, they announced cosmetics would be more under control this year. Black Ops 6 had become defined by its stupid crossover skins, consisting of all these celebrities and IP not relevant enough for Fortnite. It made the game look like an absolute joke, and with the expectation that these skins would carry over to Black Ops 7, the idea of having to look at these monstrosities for another year was quite concerning. But Treyarch listened to feedback and would be canceling some future collabs, as well as not carrying these skins over to the next entry. This meant Black Ops 7 would actually get to look like a normal game, at least for a little while. But what really got my attention was a surprise update that came during the BO7 beta. This update would add a new playlist called Open Mosh Pit, a game type that they described as having minimal skill consideration. In other words, a playlist without the dreaded skill-based matchmaking. With two of the community's most highly requested changes being brought to life, I thought to myself, I may as well give the open beta a try. And wow, this game was actually kind of fun. I liked the movement system, guns felt good to use, and the open playlist did feel demonstrably different from the lobbies I had been getting in previous years. Combine that with a few different elements that reminded me of Black Ops 3, one of my personal favorites, and the returning maps from Black Ops 2, it was starting to feel like maybe this game wasn't going to be so bad after all. And you know, I was kind of back in the mood for Call of Duty after not playing it for almost a full year at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and pre-order it. Yes, folks, they got me again. Even though I have not thoroughly enjoyed this franchise for like 5 years at this point, I bought into another one. Part of me was excited, but there was another part eating away at me. It might seem dramatic, but the only way I can describe this feeling in the back of my mind was guilt. Was I part of the problem? Are people like me the reason why this franchise has continually gone farther and farther into the gutter? On the other hand, maybe my $70 means nothing in the grand scheme of things. If I'm gonna have some fun grinding out camos, then why shouldn't I play it? As the days went by, I went back and forth in my head, hovering over the Steam refund button, contemplating what I wanted to do. There were moments where I thought, screw it, I've already spent the money, I'm just gonna keep it. But there were other times where I thought about all the amazing games that have come out this year I haven't played or bought that this money could go towards instead. And in the end, on the day before release, I broke the cycle. I got a refund for my pre-order, and for the first time since I wasn't even old enough to buy the game at GameStop without a parent, I did not purchase the yearly Call of Duty. Obviously, this means I have not played it, so I can't sit here and definitively tell you whether it's a good or bad game. But based on what I'm seeing so far, I think I made the right call. On launch day, I was clicking around online to see how people were responding to the release, and wow, has it been negative. I mean, the internet at large always hates every new COD, that's to be expected. But it was the reaction from many COD fans that caught my eye. The campaign has been torched, multiplayer seems mixed, and I haven't heard much of anything about zombies. When checking in on various streamers throughout the day, I don't know that I've ever seen people look more miserable playing a game. Probably doesn't help that their chats were just complaining about having to watch it the whole time, but that also kinda tells you a lot, right? Another point of controversy has been the rampant use of AI imagery, specifically with the calling cards. Surprisingly, it hasn't really come up on this channel yet, but I am very anti-AI. I refuse to use any form of it in my day-to-day life, and I've been extremely strict on that with myself. But if there's one form of AI I cannot stand more than any other, it's generative AI. I'll try not to get into this rant because I know you've all heard the same arguments a million times before. So let's ignore the fact that it's destroying our environment and raising our electric bills for no real benefit other than lining the pockets of billionaires, and focus on something we can all agree on. This shit looks like ass. These look like the images you make when you're messing around with AI for the first time in your life and typing random sentences. It's the kind of thing you see from Twitter bots in the replies of a viral tweet. The fact that a multi-billion-dollar company looked at this and thought, yeah, that's good to go, is dumbfounding. As much as I am morally against it, I'm willing to admit AI can be extremely beneficial for productivity, and when used in conjunction with other tools and human talent, it can lead to some great results. But these calling cards are not that. They are a disgrace. Call of Duty has been using AI for a few years now and has been called out for it in the past. But back then, they were at least trying to hide it. Now they've gone full-blown Studio Ghibli AI filters as unlockables in their game. Once I saw this, I have never felt more confident that I made the right choice by no longer supporting this garbage brand. And it seems I am not alone in finally reaching my breaking point. On Steam, Call of Duty had a peak concurrent player count of just 100,000 over launch weekend. That number is already relatively low to begin with, but it's especially bad when you consider the fact that Call of Duty consolidates several of their games into one launcher. So this 100,000 was also including players on Warzone and Black Ops 6 alongside this new release. That's pretty disastrous. As I'm sure one of you is already typing out in the comments, yes, Steam does not account for the entire player base. COD is huge on consoles, and there are also PC players on Battle.net and Game Pass. But it's delusional to act like this number should be completely ignored. Call of Duty reached peak concurrent player counts of 300,000 on Steam last year when Black Ops 6 came out, even with all the same applicable console and Game Pass arguments. You can make whatever excuses you want, but I can assure you, Activision is not happy with a player count drop that significant on one of gaming's biggest platforms. It also seems that BO7 is struggling to gain a foothold in the gaming conversation. Twitch viewership was shockingly low on launch day, and no one really seems to be talking about it on social media other than when they're making fun of it. With other big new multiplayer games like Battlefield and Arc Raiders having a lot of recent success, people have wondered if this could be the year COD was dethroned. Honestly, I was a doubter. I thought this IP had gotten big enough that it could basically never be toppled. Even in Call of Duty's absolute worst years, it was always still a top-selling game. And I'm sure Black Ops 7 will be no different. But if the Steam player count or Twitch viewership numbers are to be believed, it's clear there just isn't as much interest in this new entry as usual. Call of Duty has always been a series surrounded by hate and negativity, but with Black Ops 7, it seems the prevailing feeling is indifference. And in my opinion, this is actually the worst case scenario. A community being furious about bad decisions or devastated by a disappointing game is a community that cares and is engaged. But a community that just lets a game come and go with no real thought, this is when things get shaky. In a lot of ways, it may wrap right back around to our original conversation about the Call of Duty cycle. We've grown tired of going through these same exact motions every single year. With 2025 being such a stacked time for games, I just don't feel the need to even pretend to like this Call of Duty for the month or two I usually would, and it seems many are having the same experience. With next year's Call of Duty slated to line up directly alongside the now delayed Grand Theft Auto 6, it would have been nice to build up some momentum with Black Ops 7. But unfortunately for Activision, it appears this certainly has not been the case so far. For anyone who doesn't play these games, I know this whole video sounds a bit stupid. How hard is it to just not play games you barely like anymore? But I think there's a real mental hurdle here for a lot of COD players. I think the people you see buying this game every year and convincing themselves it will be different are doing so because of what Call of Duty represents. For those of us who grew up on COD, it was a huge part of our lives. The literal thousands of hours I spent playing these games and laughing with my friends are some of my fondest gaming memories. Most of us would agree we would do anything to go back to those times. And every year that the next COD comes out is another chance for that joy to return. Perhaps it feels like a part of our childhood is officially dying if we give up on it. Like maybe there won't ever be that next chance to get back to the good old days if we don't buy in. I'm sure someone smarter than me can get into the psychology of it better, but that's how I've processed this so far. So whether you're gearing up for another trip around the cycle, or you've finally broken it like me, I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you are spending your time playing. And even though I don't plan on buying Call of Duty again anytime soon, I'll always keep an eye on this franchise and continue to hold out hope for the slim chance of a return to form.